welcome to our first PTA meeting of 2020. Happy New Year. Can we stand and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did everybody take a copy? Did everybody sign in, first of all? Has everyone signed in? If you haven't, please sign in the sign-in book. Did everyone take a copy of the minutes? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. So we're going to waive, I'll make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes. So is that okay with you guys? Yes? Okay. Maribel, yes? Okay, a second? Okay, the minutes are accepted. Treasurer's report. So we have a little packet that has the treasurer's report. Jean Marie's going to read it to you and explain it to you. Okay, Jean?
You should read what I did over my winter vacation.
Yeah.
October is amended. When we were here in December, we waived November's reading because it was really bothering me that I couldn't figure out why it wasn't lining up. And I did. That's why October is amended. So we have October and November. And then December, that's due today, along with our interim report. Okay, so all of that is in your little packet. The expenses, and oh look, there's extras in there. Any of our income, our expenses, our great bank interest, our Barnes & Noble fundraiser, where we hung out, we wrapped some books, $167 in tips. And let's see, and then we just received a Barnes & Noble card for $200, which was 10% of the sales while we were there that day. So it added up to a nice amount. So I need to, because this is what I did. Okay, a motion to accept. A motion to approve, sorry, Maribel, thank you. Second. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the treasurer's report. You can look it over in this little packet of stuff. Again, look at the schedule of the PTA meetings for the rest of the year. They're on the schedule here. If you have any questions, concerns, want to address any issues, we have a PTA email address. Please use it. We look at it all the time. Or Denise looks at it all the time. We have a couple of fundraisers coming up. The first is well, it's really not the first. We're going to have an Applebee's Dine Out in February. I'm meeting with John on Monday the 20th to discuss the day that we'll have it. So we'll have flyers put out. You'll get it'll be on the web. You could check it out. We'll add on the PTA on the I can't speak English today. On the Dorp web page. So that flyer will go up. We are having Spa Night, which is, and I apologize if it's not on yours, but on February the 6th. There's flyers on the table. We're having Spa Night from 7 to 9 here in the cafeteria.
It's on the general one.
Is it? Did I miss it? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's there. Okay, so it's 7 to 9. I think it's a $5 fee. It is a $5 fee to just come in. And it should be a fun night. So come in and hang out with us for Spa Night. March 20th, we're having the Paint Night fundraiser. It's going to be held at Manresa, what's called Manresa Columbian Club, which is just the Knights of Columbus. They were very generous to us. They donated the hall for free. We don't have to pay a dime. The only thing that they ask that we do is buy all the food and liquor from them, and they're relatively cheap. We're charging $25, and that will include your supplies, your canvas, And the person who is doing the night for us also donated her time for free, so she's not charging us anything. So, I'm sorry? And she's a noodle parent. So, Denise and Liz are running that, so please come out that night. It should be a fun night. The Applebee's Dine Out I told you about, and then the Amazon fundraiser. Please go to smile.amazon.com, choose New Dorp for any of your, shopping needs. We get a percentage of the money. We are supposed to have a guest speaker tonight, who hasn't shown up yet. And I confirmed with him on Monday, but I'm gonna have Ms. DeAngelis take the floor for now. And as soon as he gets here, he will talk to us. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. Thank you for being here tonight. It's always a small number of attendees in January. It's just one of those months where everybody's done after vacation, and it's the end of the first term and the beginning of the second, so everybody's kind of home. So I just want to tell you that tomorrow starts the second half of finals week. We're halfway through, 2 more days to go. And the kids have been amazing. We've had high attendance for all regions, for all final exams, which has been great. It's been a little scary with the lunch break in the middle. Some kids have gone out and utilized that time to go get lunch, but everyone seems to be coming back, so I'm pretty proud of them. I want to particularly thank the 122 precinct because they've been there for us during the break so that they can monitor that everybody stays as safe as possible. We'll talk about that last week in just a minute. As I just shared with the executive board, New Dorp High School will not be participating in the Borough Arts Festival, at least the night where they perform at the St. George Theater. The reason for that is our spring musical is on the same night. I'm not sure why the borough changed their week of having this, because ours has been pretty standard every year, and we've been able to participate. So I wrote to the borough, and they said, all right, we'll miss you. I don't know that, but I guess they, maybe the St. George Theater wasn't available on other nights, I guess, I don't know. So we're not anticipating any program changes based on student programs. They should remain the same or close to the same. But what might happen is there'll be this checker playing with teachers, as I explained to the school leadership team the other day. We have some compliance issues around special ed teachers. As I've shared with you over and over again through the years, we have a shortage of special ed teachers. Just, I think it was last Tuesday or Monday, a former student who graduated from the Future Teachers Program here, who's away at school, I believe, Fredonia, came back to talk to me. He's graduating in June with his high school social studies license, high school math license, and asked me what his next step should be, and I said special ed. And I didn't even breathe before saying it. And then we walked around the building and I introduced him to our new AP who was not here, the AP Math who wasn't here when he was here. And he asked her the question and she said the same thing. And then he talked about 7 other people who said the same thing. So we know with the large numbers throughout the city, this is not just a New Dorp problem, but I'll tell you what happens. The difference is that I have never listed a special ed vacancy on very rare occasions, I should say never, because maybe there was a time, but almost never do I list a vacancy and put a substitute in that vacancy for an entire year, just so I could be in compliance. I have to be honest with you. There's a number of things that are not right about that. The first thing is that I don't believe it's fair to ask any teacher to be in a substitute position for an entire year without being appointed, without benefits of getting paid for vacations, giving into a pension, and getting medical benefits. I just don't think it's right. Unless that person is a day-to-day sub and willing to take a long-term position without that because they're not certified, but then do I want uncertified teachers in front of my students with the highest need? So in my eyes, being a special educator myself, I truly believe that good teaching is good teaching. If you get to know your students and you can support them and you can modify the curriculum and the exams and the materials as needed, I believe good teaching is good teaching. And we had amazing pairs of teachers in classroom where they're both mainstream licensed, not special ed, which of course is not in compliance. But I say two very strong teachers together is better than a teacher and a sub. Because then you have a teacher in there who's more like a glorified para being paid. So it all caught up with me. We're out of compliance right now. They're monitoring everything. So what we did was we took away mainstream classes from teachers who have special ed licenses. And the reason they have a mainstream class is because they're in a certain SLC and they stay with their kids, and that's what we try to do, the purity of the SLCs. So they no longer will be teaching that mainstream class. So if you're, for instance, if your child had Miss Russo, who was teaching a mainstream class, as a matter of fact, 2 mainstream classes and 3 special ed classes, she no longer will be teaching that mainstream class. A mainstream teacher will be in there. So there's a little bit of shuffle going on. All good teachers getting shuffled around. Nobody who is not qualified. But what it means is that some teachers will be teaching out of SLC, which I don't love, but I have to do it because we're somewhat under a microscope. Not just me, the entire city. There seems to be a law case going on about servicing students, so we're working on doing that. But I don't want you to be blindsided. I just want you to understand that. Regents Week starts on Tuesday after the 3-day weekend. Only students who are registered for Regents will come in. You'll receive a phone call knowing, if you want to look to see if your child should be taking a Regent, you just look at their program on Pupil Path, and it's the last class on the bottom of the program. It'll say Regents, like Global Regents, American Regents. That means they're registered for January. The other students stay home until January 28th, when we start the second semester on January 28th, not February 1st this year. So that will send home 100 messages so that the kids don't think they don't come in until February 1st. I want to thank Lillian for forwarding an article about No One Eats Alone. It's a kind of like a movement that's going on for Valentine's Day. And our National Honor Society, our student union, and the Hungerford students are all participating together. We're planning something special, but if we see any students in this cafeteria eating alone, we're going to have students who are going to be, part of the project that are going to go and engage them in conversation and eat lunch with them. And maybe we'll spark some friendships, and maybe we can get some kids engaged so nobody is alone. It's a good day. It's Valentine's Day. We'll have the carnations being sold. Our Hungerford students sell greeting cards. It'll be a nice day, and the student union will probably be giving out some kind of candy or something, probably kisses or something. So that's what we plan to do. So I want to thank Lillian for bringing that to our attention. Everybody jumped on it in a minute. They were super excited about doing it. And I want to talk about my phone call on Friday about the incident that occurred last Tuesday, and open the floor to any questions or concerns you might have. I have Diana Curry's with us, who is our lead dean in the Dean's Department. So if you have any specific questions, Mr. Hopkins would have been here, but he's at Curtis High School with our basketball team right now that's losing in the third quarter. So they just texted me 2 minutes ago. And I want to thank our officers. If you can introduce yourself, because I'm terrible with names, and your role in relationship to us.
Sergeant Tasmos, I'm the NCO sergeant. It's just a change in structure, so I oversee the school units, so just more supervision. With dismissals, we work very well with the school, the dean. We implemented a school dismissal plan. We beefed it up to about 12 officers within the vicinity of the buses, with a mobile car that goes back and forth to the outer skirts where they might, sneak around and fight or do anything around there. So we definitely beefed up patrol, and anything they ask, we help them out. Anything they ask, we help them out as well.
And I'm Officer DeFazio with the Community Affairs Team for the 122. Just back what he said, we beefed up the patrol now for dismissal, and you can expect us a large number of police presence to be out there now, probably from now until June.
And what I want to say is that, and I'll explain the incident in a minute, but what I want to say is that something I've said for 21 years now as principal, that we are not any different. If anything, we're actually in a much better situation, and I know 122 precinct can back me up on that, where we have far fewer incidents than many of the schools on Staten Island. Our only problem is that we are in the most visible, on the most visible corner in the borough. We're the 5th busiest corner in the 5 boroughs. So we're out there, you know, we have shopping centers, we have Highland Boulevard, and there's buses, and everybody sees things. And, you know, it's really funny how everybody forgets what it was like to be a high school student, and here they are 10, 20 years later, and they're like, oh, look at those kids, like, it's just, no, I'm sorry, I am who I am, and I gotta say what I'm thinking, and you can't turn around and just make stereotype or group comments about what you see. Our kids are really great kids, and you walk this hallway and you feel it. They're your kids. And if your kids aren't coming home to you and telling you that they feel unsafe, you have to trust that. I'm telling you that our kids, for the most part, are, I mean, there's always a rare few. They're good kids, they're not in trouble, they don't harass and bully each other. There are exceptions, but they're kids. And that goes on in every school, but they're not visible. And I know that, like I said, I know their issue. We're not perfect, but we're far from being a disaster of a school that people tend to say something. What I'll tell you was, just to give you an overview, because I know some people want to hear, there was an incident last Tuesday, yes?
Can I open that?
Sure, go ahead, knock yourself out.
It might be the speaker.
Yeah, it might be the speaker. There was an incident last Tuesday. We were not aware of the incident that it was going to happen. And Diana could, Ms. Curry could back me up. We did hear that there was some issue with, we found out later, the intended target of the incident. We did call home, correct? The parent came, picked up the child, and the child went home. We did not have any inkling whatsoever that the friend was going to be attacked by these outside people, okay? There was one girl from Curtis, one from IS2, one that ended up to be our student only 2 days before this fight, and from what my understanding is, that the target was a Tottenville student, transferred here quite a while ago, over a year ago, correct?
Yeah.
Over a year ago, for safety reasons, from the girl that they then transferred here 2 days before the incident. So someone missed it, and it's likely they could miss it because they don't see everything and they don't have all the names. And in addition, there was one of our girls that was part of the assailants that attacked this girl. This girl was walking home with her boyfriend. She did not know she was going to be a target. She was not the intended target, and it all went down. The police did come to help us. We had tons of coverage of school staff, not because we were expecting anything, but we had them out there every day. But what happened was that in order to get some order to what was going on, students were cuffed if they were out of order, or if they looked like they were involved in what ended up looking like a melee almost. And so when the victim was handcuffed, she went crazy, and other kids went crazy as well, knowing she was the victim. But the police that arrived on scene did not know who the victim was. They just saw everything going up. And so they had to bring everyone together and in order to sort it all out. And that's really what happened. Some of our kids really did jump over cars, push officers. They were unruly. They were. And I have to tell you that Mr. Hopkins is probably the least alarmed person that I know in the world, even though he's AP security. He's the most calm, level-headed person. He calms me down when I'm a little nuts. He said it had to happen like that in order to get order, because it didn't look like there could be order. And I have to be honest with you, and again, not to stereotype, girl fights are just much harder to contain than boy fights. They just are. And that's really what happened. You know, we met with the person, the victim, who ended up being a victim that day, not the intended victim, but the victim, nonetheless. Mr. Hopkins met with the mom both days. I made myself available both days to come in, but Mr. Hopkins said, do you want the principal to come in? She spoke to my secretary as well to let me know of what was going on media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, not Facebook, they don't do Facebook. And I was attending to everything all around. I did not make the call till Friday for a number of reasons. One, I met with students and I asked them if they knew there was an incident, and most students told me no. There was one student in the room on Thursday, 2 on Friday, that said they even knew anything about it, because those students who follow the directives leave the building, get on the specials right out here, and they leave, and they go through Miller Field, they go to Mill Road, and that's it, they're home. It's the students who don't get on the specials that go up to Highland Boulevard where we have a bit of a crowd. I heard back from both Mattio's office and Otto's office that they're helping us to get the MTA to get at least another 1 or 2 78s or 79s here. If not as a special, certainly on Highland Boulevard, which would really help us to move the kids. And that's really it. I mean, if people feel that I was late with a phone call, I do apologize, but sometimes I have to follow my gut and just not alarm a whole school to an isolated incident. I know the incident seemed vicious because anybody who gets hit with bleach or possibly bleach in their mix, it's terrifying and it's very upsetting to me and very hurtful to our school community as a whole. But I still don't think sometimes, and I'm here 21 years, and I have to follow my gut sometimes, that it's not worth picking up a phone and just telling everyone about it, because then it kind of gets out of hand, because then you play telephone and everybody has a different story. I don't want that to happen. So I tried to wait until Mr. Hopkins and the 122 precinct was sorting things out. I don't have information as to, is anyone getting charged with the crime? That's in the DA's hand. That's not even in the 122 precinct's hand. That's already at the level of the DA. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right, and that's where they're at right now. So, are there any questions, concerns?
Yes, you did.
So I thank you again for being here. I am always available. I will write back to anyone, call back anyone, unless I find someone who's more qualified in the building to make that phone call back to somebody. Because sometimes I don't have the information, but I can get it for you, trust me.
Question about the bus that picks them up in the front. So my son takes that's a 78.
So we have 378, 376, and 174 that meets on New Dorp Lane.
That meet on New Dorp Lane.
Right, they're right down the stairs, right there.
That's the one he takes and then goes down Highland. So,
And they don't make stops on Highland. Once they're
Right.
on, it's just drop off.
and what time do they stop running?
So this is my, if I could show you my email that I wrote to the borough president's office just yesterday, and I said, this is only my belief, this is a Deirdre belief, I don't think I should be on camera for this. My belief is that they must have some flexible time they're supposed to be sitting there, and then when they have enough kids, not necessarily full buses, they leave. When the bell rings at 2:18, it takes some of our kids that are like on the 3rd floor north and the 3rd floor east, it takes them time to get all the way around and down to the street, because they're in the back wings, they're not right here. This is the west wing, this is the south. Those kids come right out onto the patio and they're down. But the kids that are in the other 2 wings, it takes longer. So we just spoke about it with one of the commanding officers on yesterday when we met, and they're kind of gonna help us
She actually has a meeting tomorrow.
to
with
get the
MTA
buses to
try get
stay
extra
just a little
buses.
longer.
She's actually trying to get an extra bus as well.
Right,
She has a meeting tomorrow, so.
right. So that's,
So they're all there at once.
they're there all at once. They have spots. If you see the numbers in the street, they have spots where they sit in, they idle, as the kids semi-fill it, they leave, but certainly not. And listen, even having extra buses is not gonna help with those kids who wanna go to the corner. They're gonna wanna go, some of them. We try our best. But in order for us to keep the children safe, we urge them, and we have tons of people out there every day, get on the buses. You know, we're you know, ushering them to the buses. All right? I don't wanna take any more of your time. If there's any other questions, I'm here, they're here, but they don't have to stay all night, so I'm gonna allow them to go home. So I'll be here. I'll answer any, you know, individual questions or concerns you might have. All right, thank you, everybody.
Before I have Mr. Friedman speak to all of us, our guest speaker, I just want to say two things. One, I forgot to mention that there's a Chancellor Town Hall meeting on February the 10th, Monday, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Patrides, Building C. And two, on behalf of myself, my board, the PTA, we know that we have the best students on Staten Island, the best principal, the best staff. Our kids are amazing, and that is what, if you're gonna put anything on social media, that's what you put on social media. We all know that. Okay, so, Mr. Friedman, I'm gonna introduce you,
Thank you very
and
much.
you have the floor.
Thank you. So normally we actually have a PowerPoint presentation that we go through also, but after that. So my name is Eric Friedman. I'm from New York Life, right on South Avenue. I'm actually here right now with the New York Life Foundation as part of something called the Grief Sensitive Schools Initiative. It's actually, officers, I'm sorry. We'll actually be in the 122, not too long. Do you guys know Sean Spencer? He's a community outreach, I guess, czar for NYPD. We'll be to you guys soon. But we're at the Grief Sensitive Schools Initiative, which basically is New York Life's recognition that, you know, obviously our day-to-day business, we help families protect their assets, you know, protect themselves from some kind of catastrophic loss of life. But there's obviously a huge other side to that coin, which is there's the emotional toll, where, you know, especially children, they feel a big loss when something like that happens, and they don't always know how to handle it. And us as, you know, educators as well as parents play a big part in helping them get through that. Trying to remember all my slides now. The number one thing they talk about is, you know, what is the issue? The big issue obviously being bereavement doesn't get a huge amount of coverage in schools and by parents because not a lot of people know how to handle the issue of, you know, loss. A lot of parents aren't well versed in how to handle that, so how could the students? So we talk about statistics like 1 in 15 children will experience the loss of a parent or guardian by the time they reach age 18. That number becomes 1 in 7 if you count for a grandparent or a friend, like a peer, right? And those numbers are even heightened on Staten Island. We know there are, you know, big issues like, you know, opiates and all these big issues that we have strictly here on Staten Island that the rest of the country doesn't really deal with as much. So the big thing they speak about is strive. Strive to, in those situations where you have a child who has maybe lost a parent or, you know, with your own children, if maybe they lost a grandparent or a friend or something like that, rather than just kind of moving past the conversation and having the uncomfortable conversation, really sit there and dive into it with them. Talk to them about, you know, how are you feeling, how is this, you know, how do you feel this is affecting you, things like that, that can help them work through it rather than suppress it. And then the other statistics they talk about are when those issues aren't addressed, you see things like, you know, that's where addiction comes into play, grades start to drop, students unfortunately tend to withdraw. A lot of times they'll talk about before high school where you have someone who maybe in middle school or in elementary school, they lost a parent or a friend or something to that effect. They might be fine the first year of middle school. It doesn't really hit them. Finally, maybe once none of the teachers really know about their personal situation, the next year they go into high school and now they're just a bad kid. They're just, you know, a problem child. Maybe they don't listen, they tend to disrupt class. Meanwhile, it wasn't exactly that they were always like this. They've gone through some kind of trauma and that started them on this path where now no one really knows what they're going through. I have a lot of videos and stuff like this. You got this. Does anyone have any questions about that or maybe a personal situation they've gone through they have a question about? It's fair. Part of what they talk about as far as the $500 grant goes, which you guys will be receiving, is try and use it towards something educational for maybe the parents, maybe a PTA event, where you guys might talk about this amongst yourselves and you guys host a nice event, something like that. Other than that, I really don't have much else. We do pass out a questionnaire. So one of the big things they talk about with the loss of a parent or a breadwinner is people don't realize the effect that has on the child. They have to change their school, change their location. They have to they don't have the same friends or same sports anymore because of this big loss at home. We don't solicit anything today. We don't ask you questions about your own situations. We do pass out a completely anonymous survey. If anyone does feel like they want to fill that out and have a question, they're more than welcome to. If you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. That's not what we're here for. It's more educational and trying to educate anyone who has any questions about things like this. Sound good?
Yep.
Excellent. I also have the big check if you want to take a big picture.
Sure.
We like big checks.
I have my.
Oh, no.
Because I have the camera.
We received, because we had enough people here, and we received a $500 grant for the PTA, which will go to our children, as everything that we raise goes to our kids. So New York Life is giving that to the PTA, and in turn, will go back to the kids. If you want to fill out the questionnaire, please fill it out. If you have any questions, feel free to speak to Eric. And if you can't think of any questions now, or you have them at a later date, I have his information, so we can get in touch with them at really at any time.
And just to add to what's being said, we do have bereavement groups for our students, and they are referred there on a regular basis. We do have mini groups like Beautiful Me and Handsome Us, and to help those kids who have self-esteem issues. And we have other small groups within. We have the largest number of social workers and guidance counselors on the entire island, probably in the 5 boroughs, I would tend to say, for our size school ratio-wise. So we really try to know our kids as best as possible, and that's been our aim for the last 4 years. So if you detect, even if you have, like, so often some of you say to me, oh, my son's friend or my daughter's girlfriend or something, if you know something is going on in a home with a child, we don't have to give you up, but we have ways of getting to that kid and supporting that child, and academically, socially, and emotionally, and we'd like to go to their aid without anyone knowing that they're having these problems. But we've had kids that have told us about the issues of other kids. That's how the bonds of truth and trust is here, and that's really helpful. But as a parent, if you see something in a group of kids, then please do help us by letting us know, and we'll never give you up.
And just from an outsider, I mean, I've been to probably 25, 30 schools at this point on Staten Island. This is the first time I've heard of anything like that. So that's awesome that that's in place here.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, we have all good things here.
You really do.
Yes.
I can tell you from an outside standpoint, I've seen it, and it's true.
I said we have the best school on Staten Island. We've got the best school by far, by none in the city. So,
That's awesome.
due again to our kids, due to our principal, our staff, it's amazing. So with that,
I have a big check.
Eric has a good check. Ms. DeAngelis, come up, take a picture with us. Come here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Come on, Mrs. D. Come on, you gotta take it. If I have to take this picture, so do you. Oh, everyone at home, look. It's a beautiful thing. Come.
No, you gotta smile. Wait. She's hiding her face. I took that one. Okay, everybody's teeth are clean. Great.
Thank you. And thank you. And thank you, Eric. And again, if anybody has any questions, I have his information. Do you want that?
Yes, you will get an actual check.
Okay. We'll get a real
can't cash this
one. We'll get a real one. With that, I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting. And a second. Okay, we're good. Thank you, everyone, for coming.